Today we got the report from Riot into their investigation into the Tier 2 match fixing scandal. Now, for those of you who don't remember this happened a couple months ago when it all sort of came out that there might be some match fixing in Tier 2. The kind of culmination of this was this Sean Gare's video here where, he went through a variety of things, right? Talking about different screenshots, that players had received, from DMs on Discord and things like that, right? So you got... you got these screenshots of these Discord messages here. You got some payslip stuff in there as well, I think, at some point. Yeah, this, you got the payslip stuff in there as well. And then Sean went into, well, the reasons why someone might do it, and the fact that Tier 2 doesn't have much money. But then also, some VODs of players, making plays that you think is potentially kind of sus and kind of strange and, didn't make a lot of sense. So that's the context, for what was happening. Obviously, Riot then investigated this, and this is what they have said. So, here it is. The NA Challengers match-fixing allegations. In response to serious public allegations of cheating, match-fixing, and other misconduct within Valorant Challengers North America, Riot Games conducted an investigation into the claims of parties named. The investigation was conducted collaboratively by multiple internal Riot departments alongside integrity partners, including Sportradar Grid and the International Betting Integrity Association. To date, no evidence of cheating, coordinated manipulation, or betting-related misconduct has been substantiated. So, key actions and finding. Let's go through these one by one. Cheating allegations, gameplay, and account review. So Riot's anti-cheat and competitive operations teams conducted a comprehensive review of gameplay and account data for the match between Blue Otter and Shopify Rebellion, which was one of the, considered one of the suspicious games, as well as 6 other referenced matches. This includes assessment of Tournament Realm and live accounts, user behavior logs, and in-game data. No signs of cheating or suspicious activity were found. So this is going through, like Sean did essentially, Riot kind of, on the back end and whatever, going through the gameplay, right, and seeing, like, one, is anyone cheating, which was some of the allegations as well, right, that people were actually, using cheats potentially in-game. So that was one part of it, and secondly, were they doing anything, that you consider completely crazy, like this, right, running knife out, stuff like that, right? So that was part one, was Riot saying that, there wasn't enough evidence of, those kind of moments to actually, one, there was no, like, actual cheaters that they found, and two, there wasn't any kind of, anything too suspicious to kind of raise the alarms. And that, to me, isn't a surprise. When Sean was even doing that initially, right, we've seen it in Tier 1 with some of the recent games, right, as well. There's a ton of bad plays, right? Valorant players, even the best players, will make some horrific plays all of the time. And it's very difficult to say that one is obviously, match fixing, and one is just, no, you're just playing stupid and you don't know what you're doing. It's very difficult to separate those two things. And so this one doesn't really surprise me that much, to be honest, that they couldn't find anything that was substantial there, because it's difficult, honestly, to tell a lot of the time. Next one, though, I think is important, which is match integrity and betting markets analysis. Well, it's not important, but, this one, I think, was where they were going to find some evidence. Riot Integrity Partners, Sportradar Grid, and the IBIA reviewed betting market activities across Stage 1 and Stage 2 games of the 2025 NA Challengers League, and no games were flagged as suspicious. So this, again, to me, if Riot was ever going to actually find evidence, hard evidence that match fixing of some sort or whatever had taken place, it was going to be one of two things. It was either going to be someone, admits to it, or, someone rats them out. Or option 2, there was going to be some very suspicious bets placed on Tier 2 games, that came with big payouts. Now, as of yet, no one has, come forward with, solid proof that it definitely has happened. So that's one out of the way. And then here, you've got, different associations, the International Betting Integrity Association. It's kind of their whole job is to look out for these kind of things. And they didn't find any games were suspicious. And I know that a lot of people are going to say, like, oh, of course Riot has found nothing in these investigations because it's good for them that nothing has, been found, right? Well, these guys don't really care, right? Like, I don't see why the International Betting Integrity Association would particularly care whether, there had been match fixing in a Tier 2 Valorant game, right? They probably would say if there had been. So this is a big finding, I think, that, nothing was suspicious. Does that mean that nothing went on? Absolutely not. It's possible that the people doing the match fixing just did it in a clever way, right? They didn't put monumental bets on, one game, from one account on one platform, right? They spread it around across, many accounts and many platforms, and maybe it doesn't look so suspicious, right? Again, if they were gonna find something, I think that probably would have been the way of finding it, but they didn't, so unlucky, I guess. The next one, review of circulating bet slips. Riot's integrity partners reviewed the betting slip screenshots circulated on social media. One widely shared image was initially alleged to be linked to an NA Challenges, but based on its content and formatting, was determined to reference an unrelated event. While the specific source of the image could not be identified, no suspicious betting patterns were found. As a result, the allegations were deemed not credible. So again, this is relating to that, I think that screenshot that we saw earlier in Sean's video, this one. Or certainly ones like this, right? This idea of like, oh, you're betting 133 grand on, a tier 2 NA game. Could this be doctored, right? Could this be photoshopped? Yeah, like obviously, right? Like it could be. And to me, this isn't. And again, if you were, the person trying to get the pros in on this, right, you would do this sort of thing, right? You would fake one of these things to say, look at how much money we could potentially make, right? Like that's what you would do if you wanted people to get in on this. It wouldn't shock me, if this wasn't real or if it wasn't related to Valorant or something like that. That isn't that big of a surprise, I don't think. Next thing is the clean feed protocol review. So Riot's broadcast engineering and America's competitive operations jointly reviewed clean feed access protocols, and no evidence of misuse was found. Controls were confirmed to be consistent with industry standards. So obviously this is about, people having access to the clean feed. So, like behind the scenes, kind of the initial, as the game's going on, right? Live in the moment. And who has access to that, right? Because again, there was theories and suggestions, that maybe that, you could leak the clean feed to someone and they could then use that to, their advantage or whatever. Riot says that didn't happen. So again, with things like this, I don't know, I guess, cool. Allegations involving Riot staff. Claims circulating on social media suggesting Riot employee misconduct were investigated thoroughly under Riot's internal integrity protocols. These claims were traced back to third-party sources who later admitted to lacking direct evidence or retracted their statements. Despite multiple attempts to gather information and/or evidence supporting these claims, no evidence or credible information was ever provided. Based on the full investigative review, no misconduct by Riot staff was found. This relates to, I think what this is related to most of all, is the Mr. Funhavver stream, where, a lot of these allegations were brought up about match fixing, cheating, all this kind of stuff. But then in there as well, I distinctly remember there was a point that he made that Sean didn't involve in his video whatsoever. He was much more focused on, like the gameplay and the kind of, match fixing elements. But there was an alleged Riot employee that was, happy to turn a blind eye to, cheating and match fixing that they knew about. And, they would make sure that, things wouldn't come out about it. I think that is what this is about. As I say, it wasn't really mentioned by Sean. It kind of wasn't mentioned anywhere else, so it doesn't shock me that this was, just like Mr. Funhavver, here's another random thing that I also heard, right? I heard through the grapevine that there's a Riot employee on it, right? Like, that to me is what that seemed like even at the time. And additional due diligence measures, right? And took a number of additional due diligence measures such as open source intelligence investigations and performance assessments on players and teams named within the allegations, as well as mapping relationship webs. Riot engaged tournament organizers and select teams to reinforce reporting obligations and request any relevant information as part of the investigation. These additional evidence yielded no actionable evidence. Upon conclusion of the review, there was insufficient evidence to substantiate any claims of cheating, coordinated manipulation, or betting-related misconduct by any players, teams, or organizations. So all in all, basically, they're not saying that nothing happened, because we don't know if nothing happened, but they're saying there just wasn't enough evidence to prove that something definitely did happen. And as I say, if they were going to prove that something happened, to me it was only going to come from someone speaking out that knew about it, or there was very obvious, like, betting market problems that were flagged up. The thing is though, right, like, these screenshots that Sean shows, right, the thing about Sean's video is obviously the VOD review stuff and calling out individual players. Obviously that wasn't great, but this part of the video, when it first came out, most people looked at this and were like, okay, it does look like, these players are at least getting offered to match fix. But just because these people got offered something, and it does look like that was the case, it doesn't mean that they accepted it. And even if they did accept it, it doesn't mean they actually then went through with it. And even if they did accept it and really wanted to go through with it, maybe the people offering didn't actually have the means to do it, and it kind of fizzled out before it actually happened, right? So we just don't know. We just don't know, and we probably won't know, to be honest. I know that a lot of people will say, obviously, Riot finding no problems, you know, with Riot is good for them, and, you know, they're just trying to sweep it under the rug and move on. But I think, being honest, you know, the most substantial evidence we had was those screenshots, but that isn't enough, you know, to actually, you know, kind of kick someone out of Valorant and say your career's over, right, and ban them forever. And so I just think it was very difficult, and this was always kind of the most likely outcome without someone, you know, telling on someone, basically.